Hi friends, let's read the book Auntie Claus, written and illustrated by Elise Primavera. This book is about a very glamorous auntie who becomes very mysterious around Christmas time. It's a fun story. I know you'll love it. The Kringle family lived high atop a luxurious Bang Cherry Hotel in New York City, and they loved Christmas. They kept a Christmas tree up all year round. Mr. Kringle was president of the renowned Jingle Bell Company. Mrs. Kringle owned the fabulous Mistletoe to Nail salon over on 56th and 5th. They even named their young son after you-know-who. Sophie and her little brother had everything, but if you had to ask, was it enough? No, they would say. Was it enough to have their own private soda fountain? No. They would shake their heads back and forth, or clothes and books galore. No, 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 they would scream. It had been suggested by their great aunt, Auntie Claus, that maybe Sophie and her little brother were given too many presents. You can never have too many presents, sniffed Sophie. That's my motto. Yes, everyone in the Kringle family loved Christmas, but no one loved it more than Auntie Claus. Auntie Claus lived at the Bing as well, penthouse 25C. Every afternoon, Sophie was summoned there for tea. Each day, Auntie Claus would instruct Sophie on a different topic. One day it might be Christmas trees. Always pick a nice full one, darling, with springy needles. Another day, decorating. You must drape the garland, darling, one strand at a time. You must never throw it on. After they finished tea, Auntie Claus would close with these final words of wisdom. And darling, always remember my first and final rule. Whether it's birthdays, Christmas, or Halloween, it is far better to give than it is to receive. Sophie wondered about her great aunt a lot. She's so mysterioso, Sophie thought, and this was true. There were many strange goings on up in Penthouse 25C. Most people considered Auntie Claus just another eccentric New Yorker, but Sophie knew that there was more to her than met the eye. For instance, what was the diamond key that always hung from a silver ribbon around her neck? Just a bit of costume jewelry, darling, her great aunt would say, then quickly change the subject. Why did Auntie Claus leave every year right after Halloween and not return until Valentine's Day? Just a business trip, darling, and she changed the subject again. Where does she go? Sophie wanted to know. Once again, it was Halloween, and Auntie Claus announced, in 1 week, I'm off on my annual business trip. What kind of business are you in anyway? Sophie had asked. That, darling, is something for me to know and you to find out, Auntie Claus had said with a twinkle in her eye. And that was exactly what Sophie intended to do. This year, I have a plan. I'll stow away. Sophie had made up her mind. As she was leaving, Sophie said, I'm going on a business trip with Auntie Claus. Marvelous, darling. Be home in time for Christmas. There's a good girl, said her mother. Do take your mittens, said her father. I'm going too, said her little brother. Oh, no, you're not, said Sophie. Can if I want to, he said. Can not, she said. Can too, he cried. Can not, she yelled. Wah! Sophie could hear his ear-splitting scream start to fade as she ran out the door. Sophie tiptoed into Auntie Claus's apartment. There were many boxes and trunks waiting to go. Choosing the largest, Sophie pushed aside the capes and furs and wriggled inside. Quickly, she made a little peephole in the cardboard so she could see everything that was going on. Auntie Claus entered the room. She removed the diamond key that hung from the ribbon around her neck. Next, she placed the key into the lock on her old elevator. The door slid open. The boxes and trunks were loaded. The door slid shut. Vroom! The elevator shot up in the air and out into space. They were going up, up, up. Minutes, an hour passed, and still they were going up. Sophie could feel it getting colder and colder. From her peepholes, she could see stars zipping by. Or was that snow? We can't possibly be in New York any longer, she thought. The elevator landed with a thunk, tipping over Sophie's box. She could no longer see, but she thought she heard cheers. The sound soon faded until it all became completely silent. Thinking it was safe, she climbed out of the box. "Where am I?" Sophie whispered. "You must be the new elf," a little man said. "That's it," said Sophie. "I'm the new elf. Who are you?" "I'm Mr. Pudding," he said. Oh dear, you're in the violation of elf rule number 3. "What do you mean?" asked Sophie indignantly. He pulled a worn green and red book from his pocket. On the cover, it read, "Elf Rules and Vital Information." He pointed to the section marked Dress Code. Sophie read it out loud. "Always look neat, always look snappy. A well-dressed elf always feels happy." "Follow me," he said, and trotted off into the darkness. "Where are we going?" shouted Sophie. "Hurry, hurry," Mr. Pudding called over his shoulder. "Only 48 days left." Mr. Pudding put Sophie right to work in the mailroom. It seemed to her as good a place as any to begin her search. Where was Auntie Claus? And what was she doing here? For days, Sophie lived among the elves and did her best to blend in. She slept on a cot in the elf dormitory. She ate her meals in the cafeteria. No one suspected. Every day, Mr. Pudding appeared. "Hello, Elf Sophie, settling in?" he asked. "The uniform is itchy. The hours are long," said Sophie. "This is hard work." Oh dear, said Mr. Pudding. He pulled the old green and red book from his pocket. "Elf rule number 2, Mr. Pudding recited. An elf's work is never done, but hard work never hurt anyone." Rules schmools, thought Sophie. For weeks, Sophie looked high and low for Auntie Claus, but now it was almost Christmas Eve and she had turned up nothing. Sophie was worried. If she didn't find Auntie Claus, how would she get home? If she didn't get home, how will I get all my Christmas presents? She thought. Just then, Mr. Pudding appeared. "Hello, Elf Sophie," he said. "Good news. You have excelled in the mailroom and may proceed to package wrapping. And after that, we'll all pitch in on sleigh packing." "I'm not going to package wrapping and I'm not going to sleigh packing. I want to go home," Sophie yelled. "I've got to get all my—" But before she could finish, Santa's voice interrupted over the PA system. "It's that time of year again," his voice boomed, "and I was hoping one of you would volunteer to go to the coal mines and pick up the BB&G list." BB&G, he shivered, is short for bad boys and girls. Any boy or girl on that list goes without presents, or worse, for Christmas. Sophie swallowed hard. Uh-oh, she thought. Mr. Pudding continued. Only the bravest elf would volunteer for such an awful job. Yes, a brave elf, thought Sophie, or else a girl who thinks she might be on that list. She raised her hand high. "I'll go," she said. Oh dear, Mr. Pudding said, as Sophie made her way around the coal mines. She could hear the chanting of the BB&G elves. Spoiled brats and crybabies, wine babies, and all the ones who don't believe, here's some